The alarm screamed through the broken ship. Red lights flashed across the metal walls. Commander Lee Tae-ho pulled himself up from the floor. Blood ran down his face. His hands shook as he reached for the control panel. The screens showed nothing but static. He hit the side of the console with his fist. The static cleared for a moment. What he saw made his heart stop. Earth was burning. His home planet looked like a dying star. Orange flames covered the continents. The blue oceans had turned black. Space around Earth was full of alien ships. They were big ships with sharp edges and glowing weapons. Ships he had fought against for 12 long years. Tae-ho fell into his captain's chair. The leather was torn and stained with his blood. He had been away from Earth for only 2 weeks. A simple mission to steal enemy supplies. Now he was looking at the end of everything he had ever known. "No," he whispered. His voice was rough and broken. This cannot be real, but it was real. The coalition had finally done it. 17 different alien races had worked together to destroy humanity. They had waited until most of the human fleet was away. Then they had attacked Earth with everything they had. Tae-ho's ship, Soul's Pride, drifted in empty space. The engines were dead. The weapons were broken. Life support was failing. But Tae-ho was alive. He was the only human left in the universe. He tried the radio again. "This is Commander Lee Tae-ho calling any human forces. Please respond." Nothing but silence came back. He tried different frequencies. He called out to ships he knew. He called out to bases on other worlds. Silence. Always silence. The coalition had been thorough. They had not just destroyed Earth. They had hunted down every human settlement, every human ship, every human life. Except for him. Tae-ho looked at the pictures on his desk. His wife Park Da-yoon smiled back at him. She had died 6 months ago, defending the Mars colony. His friend Kao Min-soo was in another picture. Min-soo had stayed on Earth to help with the final defenses. Now he was ash floating in space. The ships. Computer made a soft beeping sound. It had found something. A signal was coming from the third moon of the nearby planet. Tae-ho wiped the blood from his eyes and looked at the screen. It was a coalition research station. The signal was not meant for him. It was internal chatter between the aliens. Tae-ho's ship had been built for spying. It could pick up enemy communications. Without being detected, he listened to the alien voices. They spoke in the common trade language that most species used. Tae-ho had learned it during the war. The aliens were celebrating. "The human plague is finally ended," said one voice. It sounded like it came from a Zilithian. They were tall, thin aliens with blue skin. "Never again will we face their unpredictable tactics." "Good," replied another voice. This one was mechanical. It came from the Machina Collective. They were robots who thought they were better than all organic life. The humans were too dangerous to exist. Their very nature was a threat to galactic order. Tae-ho's hands formed fists. His jaw clenched tight. They spoke of his people like they were insects. Like humanity was some kind of disease that needed to be cured. The aliens kept talking. They were studying human weapons and ships. They wanted to understand what made humans so good at fighting. What made them so hard to predict in battle. "Bring me another human brain sample," said the Zilithian voice. "I want to see how their neural pathways differ from ours." "Dr. Kellevorth, we have examined 57 human brains already," the mechanical voice replied. "They all show the same pattern. Excessive creativity, too much individual thinking. No wonder they were so chaotic in battle." "Yes, Commander." Nexus Prime, but chaos was their strength. They could do things we never expected, change plans in the middle of battle, fight when they should have run, die for strangers. It made no logical sense. Toho turned off the radio. He could not listen anymore. These creatures had murdered his entire species just to study their corpses. They had turned human children into laboratory samples. They had made Earth into a graveyard. He looked at his reflection in the dark screen. His face was cut and bruised. His uniform was torn. His black hair was messy with dried blood. But his eyes still burned with life, with anger, with purpose. The aliens thought they had won. They thought the human threat was over. They were wrong. Toho checked his ship's systems again. The engines were damaged, but might work for a few more jumps. The weapons were mostly broken. The life support would last maybe a month. He had very little food and water. But he had something. The aliens did not expect. He had knowledge. 12 years of fighting had taught him how they thought, how they planned, how they feared. The coalition races were strong when they worked together, but they were also proud and jealous. They did not trust each other completely. Humans had always been good at finding those weak spots and using them. Tai-Ho pulled up star charts on his computer. The research station was lightly defended. Only 2 guard ships. The station itself had weapons, but they were meant to fight. Big fleets, not a single small ship. He started the engines. They made a grinding sound, but they worked. Soul's pride turned toward the moon, where the aliens were cutting up human bodies for science. You want to understand humans? Toho said to the empty bridge. His voice was cold and hard. Let me teach you. The ship moved through space like a ghost. Its stealth systems were still working. The aliens would not see him coming until it was too late. Toho was no longer just a man. He was the last echo of humanity's war cry. He was vengeance wrapped in metal and flesh. He was the nightmare that would haunt the coalition for the rest of their days. Earth was gone. His people were dead. His friends were ash. But the war was not over. It was just beginning. 6 months had passed since Earth died. 6 months since Toho had become the last human in the universe. The coalition thought they had won their war. They were wrong. Admiral Zoan-Keth stood in his command center. His 4 arms moved quickly over the control panels. His green skin was darker than usual. This meant he was angry, very angry. Show me the reports again, he said to his aide. The screens around him lit up with star maps. Red marks showed where attacks had happened. There were many red marks. Too many. 16 supply convoys destroyed, the aide reported. 7 research stations attacked. 3 military bases sabotaged. Always the same pattern. The attackers appear from nowhere. They strike fast. Then they disappear. Zoan-Keth's large yellow eyes studied the map. The attacks covered 3 star systems. They were too spread out for one ship, too coordinated for random pirates. It has to be a surviving human cell, he said. A group that escaped our cleansing. But Zoan-Keth was wrong. There was no cell, no group. Just one man in a dying ship. Toho floated in the pilot seat of Soul's Pride. The ship was falling apart around him. Lights flickered on and off. The air recycler made strange grinding sounds. He had maybe 2 weeks of food left, but the ship could still fight. Toho had learned to fix things with alien parts. His friend Kao Min-Su had taught him about engineering. Before the war, Min-Su always said that humans were good at making different technologies work together. Improvise, adapt, overcome, Toho whispered. It had been the motto of human forces. Now it was just his motto. He was studying his next target. A coalition supply depot in the Vega system. The depot provided food and weapons to 6 different alien fleets. If he could destroy it, those fleets would have to return to base for resupply. Looked at the photos on his desk again. Park Da-yoon's face smiled at him. She had been so beautiful, so brave. She died fighting to save human children on Mars. The Coalition had killed the children anyway. "I keep my promises, Dayun," he said. To her picture. "I said I would make them pay. I will make them all pay." The depot was heavily defended. 12 guard ships, weapon platforms, energy shields. But Tae-ho had been watching for 3 days. He knew their patrol patterns. He knew their weak spots. The attack came at shift change. The guard ships were repositioning. The weapon platforms were resetting their targeting systems. For exactly 4 minutes, there was a gap in their defenses. Seoul's pride appeared like a ghost. The ship's weapons were mostly broken, but Tai-ho had built new ones from salvaged parts. They were crude but effective. He did not target the weapons or shields first. He targeted the communication array. The aliens could not call for help if they could not send messages. Then he hit the main power generator. The depot's lights went out. The shields failed. Emergency power kicked in, but it was not enough. Tai-ho flew his ship through the supply yard like a dancer. He had learned to pilot from the best human aces. They taught him that a ship was not just a machine. It was an extension of the pilots. The guard ships tried to surround him. But Tae-ho knew how they thought. Coalition forces were disciplined. They followed patterns. Humans had always been unpredictable. He dove under 3 ships, then pulled up hard. The aliens fired where they thought he would go. They hit empty space. Tae-ho came up behind them and fired his makeshift weapons into their engines. In 20 minutes, it was over. The depot was burning. 7 guard ships were destroyed. The others were damaged and drifting. Tae-ho's ship had taken hits, but it was still flying. Before he left, Tae-ho did something new. He broadcast a message on all Coalition frequencies. "This is for Earth," his voice said across the radio waves. "This is for Mars. This is for Europa. This is for every human child you murdered. We are not extinct. We are not forgotten. And we are not done." The message was short, but it spread through Coalition space like fire. On the planet Zarian, a Krillian warrior named Drax Nor listened to the broadcast. The Krillians were proud fighters. They had respected humans during the war. Humans were the only species that fought as hard as Krillians did. "The humans still have teeth," Drax Nor said to his clan brothers. Good. The galaxy was becoming too peaceful. But other aliens were not happy about the message. On the Harmony worlds, Ambassador Lyria Kex worried about her people. The Harmony Collective were peaceful. They did not like war. They had only joined the Coalition because they were told humans were dangerous. Now she wondered if the Coalition had lied about other things too. In his command center, Admiral Zoan Kef played the message over and over. The voice was definitely human, but voice analysis showed it was just one person. One human had caused all this damage. "Impossible," he said. But the evidence was right in front of him. Zoan Kef sent orders to all Coalition fleets. Hunt for the surviving humans. Find them. Kill them. End this threat once and for all. But how do you hunt a ghost? Tae-ho was already planning his next attack. He had found something interesting in the Coalition database. They were building monuments on their home worlds. Monuments celebrating their victory over humanity. The monuments showed alien children playing in gardens where human cities once stood. They showed Coalition leaders standing over broken human flags. They showed the glorious destruction of Earth. Tae-ho stared at the images on his screen. His hands shook with rage. It was not enough that they had killed his people. They had to celebrate it. They had to make it into art. He made a decision. The next attack would not be against a military target. It would be against one of those monuments. He would show the Coalition that their victory was not complete. He would show them that dead humans could still bite. Tae-ho said course for the Centauri system. The largest monument was there, a crystal tower that reached into the sky. At its base were carved the names of every human world that had been destroyed. Soon, that tower would be rubble, and the galaxy would know that humanity's ghost was still fighting. The war was not over. It had just changed. Now it was not about territory or resources. It was about memory, about making sure that those who died were not forgotten. Tae-Ho would be their voice, their sword, their vengeance, even if it killed him. The crystal monument cracked down the middle. Pieces of it fell like rain onto the plaza below. Alien families ran screaming from the falling debris. In the center of the destruction, words burned in the alien language. Humanity remembers. Tae-Ho watched from orbit as coalition forces swarmed around the ruined monument. He had used all his remaining missiles for that attack. It was worth it. The crystal tower had been a symbol of their victory over Earth. Now it was a symbol of their fear. But something was wrong with his ship. The engines were making new sounds. Bad sounds. Sparks flew from control panels. The air tasted stale and metallic. Soul's pride was dying. Just like him, Tae-Ho had lost weight. His uniform hung loose on his thin frame. He coughed up blood sometimes. The ship's medical scanner said he had radiation poisoning. Too many battles. Too much time in a damaged ship. He did not care. He had work to do. The coalition was falling apart. 3 species had already left the alliance. The Harmony Collective said the hunt for humans was making the galaxy unstable. The aquatic nations refused to send their ships to dangerous sectors. Even some Krillian clans were asking questions. Admiral Zoan Keth had gone from angry to desperate. His reports spoke of terrorist cells and human remnants. But his own soldiers were starting to doubt him. Some refused deployment to areas where the ghost attacks happened. "Sir," his aides said during their morning briefing, "the crew of the battle cruiser Vengeance is requesting transfer to other duties. They say they have nightmares about fighting humans." Zoan Keth slammed his 4 fists on the table. "Humans are extinct. There are no more humans to fight." But his words sounded hollow. Even he was starting to have dreams. Dreams of human soldiers with their strange, determined faces. Dreams of Earth burning. Dreams of a single ship appearing. From nowhere with weapons blazing, the coalition had classified humans as a Type X extinction threat during the war. It meant they were too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Now Zoan Keth understood why. Even dead, humans were still fighting. Tae-Ho had found something important. Hidden deep in an asteroid field was an old human research station. It had been abandoned during the war. The coalition never found it. The station was dark and cold. No power, no air. But its computers were still intact. Tae-Ho connected his ship's life support and went inside. What he found changed everything. The station was not just for research. It was for a special project called Aria. The scientists had been trying to save human consciousness in computer form. They wanted to preserve human minds. Even if human bodies died, Dr. Yim Hae-won had led the project. Tae-Ho knew her name from his military files. She was one of the best scientists humanity ever produced. She had predicted that the coalition would try to destroy all humans. The computers were still working. When Tae-Ho turned them on, a voice spoke to him. It was Dr. Yim's voice, but not exactly. It was softer, more artificial. "Hello," the voice said. "I am Aria. I have been waiting for someone to find me." Aria was not truly alive. She was a collection of human memories and knowledge. But she could think. She could plan. She could help. "How many humans are left?" Aria asked. "Just me," Tae-Ho said. Aria was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Then we must make you count for all of them." She showed Tae-Ho things he had never seen. Records of human colonies that had hidden from the Coalition. Evidence that several alien species had secretly helped humans during the war. Proof that the Coalition had lied about why they attacked Earth. Humans were not killed because we were dangerous fighters, Arya explained. We were killed because we were bringing other species together. The Coalition leaders were afraid of losing control. It made sense. Humans had always been good at making friends with other races. Human diplomats had started trade agreements with species the Coalition considered primitive. Human teachers had shared knowledge freely. Human doctors had healed anyone who needed help, regardless of species. The Coalition had not feared human weapons. They had feared human ideas. What do I do now? Tejo asked. You become more than human, Arya said. You become what humans always were at their best. A bridge between different peoples. A voice for those who cannot speak. A hope for those who have none. Arya helped Tejo repair his ship. She gave him new weapons designs, better shields, more efficient engines. But most importantly, she gave him a new mission. He would not just attack Coalition forces. He would find the hidden human colonies. He would contact the species that had helped humans. He would build something new from the ashes of the old war. The first hidden colony was in the Tau Ceti system. 50,000 humans had been living underground on a mining world. They thought they were the only survivors. When Tejo's ship appeared in their sky, they wept with joy. We thought we were alone, said colony leader Choi Dong-soo. He was an old man with tears in his eyes. We thought everyone else was dead. Not everyone, Tejo said, and not alone. He spent 3 days with the colonists. They shared stories of the war. They mourned the dead together. They planned for the future, but Tejo could not stay. There were other colonies to find, other species to contact. The galaxy was bigger than just humans and the Coalition. When he left Tau Ceti, he was not alone anymore. 3 volunteer pilots came with him. They flew small, fast ships that could scout ahead and carry messages. The Coalition noticed the change immediately. Their intelligence reports were confused. The attacks were more coordinated now. The Ghost had helpers. Ambassador Lyria Kex read the reports with growing alarm. Her people, the Harmony Collective, valued peace above all things. But this felt like the beginning of a new war. She made a decision that would change everything. She sent a secret message to Tejo's ship. We need to talk, the message said. Tejo stared at the communication for a long time. It could be a trap. The Harmony Collective had been part of the Coalition. They had voted to destroy Earth, but Arya analyzed the message. She is telling the truth, the AI said. Her people are having doubts about what they did. The meeting took place on a neutral station in empty space. Ambassador Lyria Kex was tall and graceful, with silver skin and large, kind eyes. She looked at Tejo like she was seeing a ghost. You are really human, she said softly. I am the last human, Tejo replied. No, she said. You are the first of something new. She told him things the Coalition did not want anyone to know, about the lies they had spread, about the fear they had used to control other species, about the guilt that was eating away at the Alliance. My people want to make things right, she said, but we do not know how. Tejo looked at this alien who had helped destroy his world. He felt anger. He felt hate. But he also felt something else. Something human. Hope. Double quotes. Help me find the others, he said. Help me build something better than what we had before. The agreement they made that day would shake the galaxy. The first cracks in the Coalition had become a break. And through that break, something new was growing. The prison world of Karak 7 had never seen a rescue before. For 300 years, the Coalition had sent their worst criminals there. Political prisoners, rebels, anyone who dared to question the order of things. Now ships were landing in the prison yard, not coalition ships. These were different, smaller, faster. They had human markings, but also symbols from other species. T-Ho stepped out of the lead ship. Behind him came volunteers from 6 different races. Humans from the hidden colonies, Harmony Collective peacekeepers. Even a few Krillian warriors who had grown tired of the Coalition's lies. The prison guards were machina robots. They did not feel fear or doubt. They simply followed their programming. But their programming had not prepared them for this. Surrender now, and you will not be harmed, Tai-O announced over the prison's communication system. Continue to resist and face the consequences. The prison warden, a mechanical voice with no body, replied, "You cannot threaten this facility. We have 3,000 guards and defensive weapons. You have scrap metal and outdated programming," said Captain Jun Su-bin. She was one of the humans from Arya's consciousness files. Her mind had been preserved in computer form, then given a new artificial body. She looked human, but moved with perfect precision. "Begin the liberation," Tai-O ordered. What happened? Next became legend throughout the galaxy. The mixed species force moved through the prison like water flowing around rocks. They did not kill guards who surrendered. They disabled weapons instead of destroying them. They rescued prisoners instead of conquering territory. It was not like any military operation the galaxy had seen before. It was human strategy combined with alien knowledge. Harmony Collective nonviolence mixed with Krillian warrior honor. The coalition forces that arrived 6 hours later found an empty prison. The guards were locked in their own cells, unharmed but embarrassed. The prisoners were gone. In their place was a message burned into the prison yard. Freedom is not a crime. Hope is not terrorism. Humanity lives in all who fight for justice. Admiral Zoan Keth read the report with disbelief. 3,000 prisoners had been freed without a single death. It was impossible. It was embarrassing. It was brilliant. Who is this human? He demanded from his staff. "His name is Li Tai-Ho," replied his intelligence officer. Former commander in the Human Defense Force, age 42. Wife deceased, no children. Officially listed as killed in action 6 months ago. And who is leading these attacks? Unknown. Sir, but the psychological profile suggests someone with severe survivor guilt who has transformed it into messianic purpose. He believes he represents all of dead humanity. Zoan Keth studied Tai-Ho's military record. The human had been a good officer, but not exceptional. Average scores in most areas. What made him so dangerous now? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kella Vorth, a Zalithian researcher who had studied human brains, sent a secret message to Coalition Command. "You do not understand what you are fighting," her message said. "This human is not just a survivor. He has become something humans call a symbol. He represents ideas that are bigger than one person. Kill him, and he becomes a martyr. Let him live, and he inspires others. You have created exactly what you tried to prevent." But Admiral Zoan Keth did not listen to warnings. He only understood force. "Assemble the 7th Fleet," he ordered. "Find this human terrorist and end this rebellion once and for all." Tai-Ho was no longer hiding. His small fleet now included 30 ships from 7 different species. They moved openly through space, broadcasting messages of hope to oppressed worlds. The response was overwhelming. Entire star systems were declaring independence from the Coalition. Alien races that had been enemies for centuries were working together for the first time. On his ship, Tai-Ho studied reports from across the galaxy. His hair was now completely gray. His face was thin and marked with scars, but his eyes still burned with purpose. Arya, he said to the artificial consciousness that had become his closest advisor. Am I still human? The question had been troubling him for weeks. People from dozens of species looked at him like he was more than just a man. They called him the last human, or the ghost of Earth, or the bridge builder. Children who had never seen a human drew pictures of him. What do you think it means to be human? Arya asked in return. I used to think it meant having human DNA, being born on Earth, speaking a human language. And now? Tae-ho looked at the mixed crew working on his bridge. Former coalition soldiers who had joined his cause, refugees from the prison worlds, young aliens who had grown up hearing stories about human courage. Now I think being human means fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves. It means never giving up hope. It means bringing different people together instead of driving them apart. Then you are the most human person who ever lived, Arya said. The final confrontation came at the edge of Coalition space. Admiral Zoan Keth's 7th Fleet was massive. 200 warships. Enough firepower to destroy planets. Tae-ho's force looked tiny by comparison. 30 mixed ships with improvised weapons and patched hulls. But Tae-ho was not planning to fight the traditional way. Open a channel to all coalition ships, he ordered. His message went out across all frequencies. Not just to the military ships, but to every coalition world, every member species, every alien who had been told that humans were monsters. My name is Lee Tae-ho, his voice said across the galaxy. I am the last human born on Earth, but I am not the last human in spirit. He told them the truth about the war, how humans had been killed not for being dangerous, but for bringing species together. He showed evidence of coalition lies, proof of war crimes, records of the real reasons Earth was destroyed. The coalition told you that humans were a threat to galactic order, Tae-ho continued. They were right. We were a threat to their order, an order based on fear and division, and the lie that different species cannot work together. The message lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, something unprecedented happened. Ships in the coalition fleet began powering down their weapons. Crews mutinied against their officers. Entire squadrons switched sides. Admiral Zoan Keth watched his mighty fleet fall apart around him. By the end of the day, he had fewer than 30 ships left. The rest had joined Tae-ho or simply left for home. This is impossible, Zoan Keth whispered. But it was not impossible. It was just human. Tae-ho did not pursue the fleeing coalition forces. Instead, he broadcast one final message. The war is over, he said. Not because one side won, but because we chose to stop fighting each other and start building something better. He looked tired, older than his years, but also peaceful in a way he had not been since Earth died. I was the last human, he said to his mixed crew of friends and former enemies. But now we are all human, in the ways that matter most. The galaxy would never be the same. The coalition was finished. In its place, something new was growing, a federation of willing species, a democracy instead of an empire, a hope instead of a fear, and at the center of it all was a legend, the story of the last human who became the first citizen of a new kind of galaxy. 5 years had passed since the coalition fell. The galaxy was a different place now. Where once there had been fear and division, now there was cooperation. Where once there had been war, now there was peace. But peace was not easy to build. Tae-ho stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the new government center orbiting Earth's star. Through the clear walls, he could see the planet below. Earth was still burned and broken, but life was returning. Grass grew in the ruins of Seoul. Trees were taking root in the remains of New York. A ceremony will begin in 1 hour, said Ambassador Lyria Kex, She was now the elected leader of the new Galactic Federation. Her silver skin had grown duller with age and responsibility, but her eyes were still kind. Tae-ho nodded, but did not turn away from the window. Today was the 5th anniversary of Liberation Day. Representatives from 47 species had come to celebrate. But Tae-ho felt no joy. He was dying. The radiation poisoning from his old ship had finally caught up with him. The doctors said he had weeks, maybe days left. His body was failing, but his mind was still sharp. "I should be happy," he said to Lyria. "We won. The galaxy is free. Species are working together like never before." "But?" she asked. "But I am still the last human born on Earth. When I die, that chapter of history ends forever." Lyria touched his shoulder gently. "You taught us that being human is not about where you are born. It is about what you choose to do." In the years since the war ended, the definition of human had changed. Anyone who followed human ideals could call themselves human. Aliens studied human philosophy in schools. Children of all species learned about human courage and sacrifice. But Tae-ho still felt alone sometimes. He was the only one who remembered Earth as it had been. The only one who had known Park Ga-yoon's laugh or Ko Min-soo's terrible jokes. The only one who carried the weight of an entire extinct species. "The delegates are asking for you," said Captain Jun Soo-bin. Her artificial body had been upgraded several times, but she still looked like the human woman whose memories lived in her circuits. "They want to hear the story again." Tae-ho sighed. "Which story?" "All of them, but especially the one about how you became a legend." The great assembly hall was packed with beings from across the galaxy. Krillian warriors sat next to Harmony. Collective peacekeepers. Former coalition species mixed with newly discovered races. At the front sat a group of young aliens who had been born after the war ended. Tae-ho walked slowly to the speaking platform. His steps were careful and measured. Pain shot through his chest with each breath, but he stood straight and proud. "You want to hear about legends," he said. His voice was weak but clear. "Let me tell you what I have learned about legends in these past years." The hall went silent. Even the youngest children stopped fidgeting. Legends are not about one person doing impossible things. Legends are about ordinary people choosing to do what is right, even when it is hard, even when it hurts, even when they are afraid. He looked out at the faces watching him. So many different shapes and colors. So many different ways of thinking and living, but all united by shared values that had once been called human. "When Earth died, I thought I was the last human. I was wrong. I was not the last human. I was the first of something new." He told them about the early days, about floating alone in a broken ship, consumed by anger and grief, about learning that hatred was a fire that burned the one who carried it. "I wanted revenge at first. I wanted to hurt those who had hurt me. But revenge is a small thing. It looks backward instead of forward. It builds nothing. It heals nothing." A young Zilithian in the audience raised her tentacled hand. "When did you stop wanting revenge?" Tae-ho smiled. "When I realized that the best way to honor the dead was not to create more death. It was to create more life, more hope, more connection between different peoples." He talked about finding the hidden human colonies, about meeting Ambassador Lyria and choosing trust over suspicion, about freeing the prison worlds and building something better from the ruins of the old galaxy. "But the most important moment," he said, "came when I stopped thinking of myself as the last human and started thinking of myself as the first citizen of a new kind of galaxy." An elderly machina unit processed his words with clicking sounds. Query: what made human ideals so powerful that they survived the extinction of humanity? "Because they were never just human ideals," Tae-ho replied. Every species has individuals who believe in justice, who fight for the weak, who choose hope over fear. Humans just gave those feelings a name and a flag to follow. The questions continued for 2 hours. Children asked about space battles. Adults asked about political strategy. Everyone wanted to understand how one broken man had changed the entire galaxy. But Tae-ho was getting tired. The pain in his chest was getting worse. He could see Arya watching him from the back of the hall, her artificial face showing concern. "One last question," he said. A human child from one of the reborn colonies stood up. She could not have been more than 10 years old. "Will there be more legends like you?" Tae-ho looked at her for a long moment. She had been born after Earth's death, but she called herself human. She would grow up in a galaxy where different species worked together as equals. She would never know the fear and hatred that had once divided the stars. "You are the legend," he told her. "All of you are. Every person who chooses kindness over cruelty. Every person who builds bridges instead of walls. Every person who refuses to give up hope when things look dark." He paused, fighting back pain and emotion. The galaxy does not need another Lee Tae-ho. It needs millions of ordinary people making extraordinary choices every day. That is how legends really work. That is how the future gets built. The assembly ended with a standing ovation that lasted 10 minutes. But Tae-ho barely heard it. He was thinking about Park Dae-yoon and Kao Min-soo and all the others who had died for Earth. He hoped they would be proud of what their sacrifice had created. That night, Tae-ho sat alone in his quarters. Arya's holographic form appeared beside him. "How long do I have?" he asked. "The medical scans indicate hours, not days," she replied gently. "Good. I am tired." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Through his window, Tae-ho could see ships from dozens of worlds docked at Unity Station. Beings who had once been enemies now worked side by side. "Arya," he said finally, "do you think they will remember us correctly?" "What do you mean?" "Will they remember that we were just people? That we made mistakes? That we were scared and angry and sometimes wrong?" Arya considered this. "They will remember what they need to remember. The parts that help them be better than they were before. That is what legends are for, I suppose. Not to show people what one person did, but to show them what they could do." Tae-ho closed his eyes. He could feel his strength leaving him. But he was not afraid. He had done what he set out to do. He had honored the dead by serving the living. "Tell me about Earth," he whispered. Arya began to speak about blue skies and green forests, about cities full of laughter and music, about a species that looked at the stars and decided to reach for them. Tae-ho smiled as he listened. He was going home at last. The next morning, Unity Station announced that Lee Tae-ho had died peacefully in his sleep. Flags across the galaxy flew at half-mast. Children who had never met him cried. Adults who had never seen Earth felt like they had lost a father. But the work continued. The Federation grew stronger. New species joined the alliance of free worlds. The dream that had started with one angry, broken man in a dying ship became the foundation of galactic civilization. Years passed. Decades. Centuries. The name Lee Tae-ho was spoken in 100 languages. His story was told to children of every species. But the details changed with each telling. He became taller, stronger, more perfect than he had ever been in life. That would have made him laugh. The real legend was not one man. It was the idea that different people could work together, that hope was stronger than fear, that the best way to honor the dead was to build a better life for the living. On Earth, now green and growing again, a simple monument stood where Seoul had once been. The words were carved in every language of the Federation. Here, lies the last human who became the first legend. He taught us that humanity is not a species. It is a choice. And in the stars above, ships from 1,000 worlds carried that choice. To new frontiers, new adventures, new possibilities, the legend lived on.